She stole my life. Now I'm taking it back.
The earring under my bed wasn't Laura's. I know because I've bought my wife jewelry exactly 3 times in our 14-year marriage, and none of those pieces were diamond-studded teardrops worth more than my monthly mortgage payment. The thing glinted at me from beneath the dust ruffle like a guilty conscience, catching the morning light streaming through our bedroom window. My name is Matt Fairchild, and up until that Tuesday morning in October, I thought I had the perfect suburban life. Austin, Texas, Meadowbrook subdivision, house number 2847 on Sycamore Lane. 2-story colonial with a 3-car garage, professionally landscaped yard, and a homeowners association that sends passive-aggressive letters if your grass grows a millimeter too tall. I'm 39 years old, ex-paramedic turned home automation specialist. Sounds fancy, but basically I install smart doorbells and program thermostats for people too busy or too lazy to read instruction manuals. It pays well enough to keep Laura in her research lab coats and our daughters in private school uniforms. Speaking of my daughters, Beth is 12, sharp as a tack, and has inherited my sarcastic sense of humor. Janie is 8, anxious like her mother used to be, and still thinks I hung the moon. They're the reason I get up every morning, the reason I smile when I come home to this beige paradise we call home. Laura Staples, she kept her maiden name, said it was for professional reasons, is a research scientist at Biotech Solutions downtown. 36 years old, ice blonde hair always pulled back in a perfect bun, and lately, colder than a morgue freezer. She used to laugh at my jokes. Used to curl up next to me on the couch during movie nights. Used to look at me like I mattered. That was before the work trips started. Dad, Mom left early again, Beth announced, padding into the kitchen in her school uniform. She didn't even say goodbye. I looked up from my coffee and the mysterious earring I'd wrapped in a tissue. She's got that big project, sweetheart. You know how important her work is. Beth rolled her eyes, a gesture she'd perfected in the last year. More important than us, apparently. Don't talk about your mother like that. The words came out automatically, but my heart wasn't in the scolding. Hard to defend someone when you're holding an evidence of their betrayal in your pocket. Janie shuffled in next, rubbing sleep from her eyes. Is Mommy coming to my soccer game Saturday? I knelt down and smoothed her hair. We'll see, baby girl. She's really busy right now. The lie tasted bitter. Laura hadn't been to one of Janie's games in 2 months. Always an excuse. Always something more pressing than watching our 8-year-old run around a field, grass stains on her knees, and pure joy on her face. After dropping the girls at school, I sat in my truck in the parking lot and stared at that earring. Diamond teardrops. Expensive. The kind of gift a man buys when he's trying to impress someone. The kind of gift that gets lost in the heat of passion. Forgotten until the wife finds it while looking for a lost sock. My phone buzzed. Text from Rick Martinez, my neighbor and the only cop I trust in this whole frustrating subdivision. BBQ tonight? Sarah's making her famous ribs. Bring the girls if Laura's working late again. Laura was always working late these days. Or so she said. I texted back. We'll be there. Thanks, man. Rick and Sarah Martinez lived 3 houses down, had 2 boys around my girls' ages, and somehow managed to make marriage look effortless. They held hands during neighborhood barbecues. They laughed at each other's stories. They looked at each other like they still remembered why they fell in love. I used to think Laura and I had that. Now I couldn't remember the last time she'd looked at me with anything other than mild irritation or complete indifference. The workday passed in a blur of smart home installations and troubleshooting calls. Mrs. Henderson couldn't figure out why her living room lights kept dimming randomly. Mr. Patel's security system was sending alerts every time a leaf fell in his backyard. Normal problems with normal solutions. Unlike the problem waiting for me at home. I picked up the girls from after-school care and headed to Rick's. The Martinez house always smelled like happiness. Whatever Sarah was cooking, kids laughing. That lived-in warmth that comes from people who actually like each other. Matt! Sarah greeted me with a hug that lasted just long enough to whisper, You okay? You look like heck. Just tired, I lied. Sarah had always been able to read people like open books. Occupational hazard of being married to a cop, I supposed. Rick appeared with a beer in each hand. Girls are already in the backyard with the boys. Come on, let's get you fed and drunk. Not necessarily in that order. We settled into lawn chairs while Sarah tended the grill. The October evening was perfect. Cool enough for a light jacket, warm enough to sit outside and pretend everything was normal. So, where's Laura tonight? Rick asked, taking a long pull from his beer. Another work emergency? Conference call with overseas partners, I recited. The lie was getting easier each time I told it. Time zones, you know how it is. Rick nodded, but I caught him exchanging a look with Sarah. They knew. Maybe not the details, but they knew something was wrong. Good friends always do. Dad! Janie came running over, grass stains already decorating her white shorts. Can we stay for s'mores, please? We'll see, baby. Don't get too dirty, okay? She giggled and ran back to join the other kids. Beth was sitting on the porch steps, texting someone on her phone. 12 going on 20, that one. She's growing up fast, Sarah observed, following my gaze. Both of them are. Must be hard with Laura working so much. There it was, the gentle probe. Sarah was fishing, trying to figure out what was eating at me without coming right out and asking. I appreciated the subtlety, but I wasn't ready to talk about diamond earrings and cold shoulders. We're managing, I said instead. Rick leaned forward in his chair. You know, if you ever need anything, and I mean anything, you just have to ask, right? We're family here. Family. The word hit harder than it should have. These people, these neighbors who had no real relation to me whatsoever, felt more like family than my own wife lately. My phone buzzed. Text from Laura. Working late again? Don't wait up. It was 7:30 on a Tuesday evening. I'd been married long enough to know that research labs didn't typically require overtime, that started after dinner and ended after midnight. But I'd also been married long enough to know that questioning my wife's schedule was a guaranteed fight. I showed Rick the text. He read it and shook his head. Man, they're really working her hard over there. Yeah, I agreed. Really hard. But the earring in my pocket suggested Laura wasn't the only one being worked hard these days. The next morning, I decided to do something that would have seemed paranoid 6 months ago, but now felt like basic survival. I installed security cameras in my own house. Honey, why are you putting cameras in the bedroom? Laura asked, watching me drill holes in the crown molding. She'd come home at 2:15 in the morning, reeking of expensive cologne that definitely wasn't mine. We've been having issues with raccoons getting into the attic, I lied smoothly. Want to see where they're coming from? Laura shrugged and went back to her coffee. The woman who used to question every home improvement project now couldn't care less what I did to our house. Red flag number 47, but who was counting? I'll be at the lab all day, she announced, not looking up from her phone. Probably late again tonight. What's this big project you're working on? I asked, testing the camera angle. Perfect view of our bed, where that earring had been hiding. Confidential, she said curtly. You know I can't discuss my work. Funny thing about that, Laura used to tell me everything about her research. Boring details about protein synthesis and cellular regeneration that I pretended to understand because I loved watching her face light up when she talked about her passion. Now everything was classified, confidential, or too complicated for my non-scientific brain to comprehend. After she left, I synced the cameras to my phone and tested the system. Crystal clear video, motion-activated recording, cloud storage, backup. If Laura was bringing her mystery man into our bedroom, I'd have proof. And if she wasn't, well, at least I'd know for sure that I was losing my mind. The girls were at school, Laura was at her lab, and I had a full day of service calls ahead of me. But first, I had a stop to make. Jamie Chen ran a private investigation service out of a strip mall office between a nail salon and a tax preparation service. I'd met her 3 years ago when she hired me to install a security system in her office. Ex-cop turned PI, dry sense of humor, and a reputation for finding things people didn't want found. Matt Fairchild, she said when I walked through her door. Let me guess. You need someone followed. That obvious? Jamie gestured to the chair across from her desk. Married guy. Looks like he hasn't slept in weeks. Keeps checking his phone like he's expecting bad news. Either your wife's cheating or you're about to ask me to prove your business partner is embezzling. Since you install smart doorbells for a living, I'm guessing it's the wife. I pulled out the earring and set it on her desk. Found this under my bed yesterday morning. Jamie picked it up, examined it under her desk lamp. Nice piece. Probably $1,500, maybe $2,000. Not the kind of thing that falls out of a Cracker Jack box. I've never seen it before, but your wife has access to your bedroom. She's been working late a lot. Coming home after midnight, leaving early in the morning. Says it's a big project at work. Jamie nodded and pulled out a yellow legal pad. How long has this been going on? 3 months, maybe 4. Started gradually, then ramped up. She's been distant, cold. We barely talk anymore except about the kids' schedules and household stuff. Any suspicious phone calls, texts, credit card charges? I thought about it. She got a new phone last month. Said her old one was acting up. And she's been more protective of it. Takes it everywhere, even to the bathroom. Classic signs, Jamie said, making notes. What about friends? Has she mentioned anyone new? Work colleagues she's gotten close to? There's this guy, Scott Williams. He's some kind of biotech consultant. She's mentioned him a few times, always in the context of work, but I paused, remembering something. At the company picnic last month, I saw them talking by the lake. Very close conversation. When I walked over, they stepped apart really quickly. Jamie looked up from her notes. Describe him. Tall, fit, probably early 40s. Drives a black Range Rover with custom rims. Expensive clothes, expensive watch. The kind of guy who thinks he's God's gift to women. And your wife's type? I laughed bitterly. Apparently. Jamie set down her pen and leaned back in her chair. Here's what I can do for you, Matt. I can follow your wife, document her activities, get you proof of what's going on. But I have to ask, are you sure you want to know? Sometimes ignorance really is bliss. I thought about my daughters, about the life we'd built, about the mortgage and the soccer games and the family vacations we'd planned. Then I thought about that earring, about Laura's cold shoulder, about the way she looked right through me like I was furniture. I need to know, I said. Okay, my rate is $500 a day plus expenses. I'll need a retainer of $1,500 to get started. And Matt, whatever I find, whatever I document, there's no going back once you know. You understand that? I wrote her a check from my business account. How long will it take? Give me a week. If something's going on, I'll have proof. If not, you can sleep better knowing your wife really is just a workaholic. But I already knew what Jamie would find. The earring had told me everything I needed to know. Now I just needed someone else to confirm it. That evening, I sat in my truck outside Janie's soccer practice and watched the other parents. Normal families with normal problems. The Hendersons arguing about their son's grades. The Patels discussing vacation plans. The Williamses, wait. Scott Williams was standing by the fence, talking to another parent. What the heck was he doing at my daughter's soccer practice? He didn't have kids on the team. Didn't have kids at all, as far as I knew. I got out of my truck and walked over, and my heart pounding. Scott, right? I said, extending my hand. Matt Fairchild. I think you work with my wife, Laura. His smile was perfect, practiced, son, mum, and completely fake. Matt! Yes, Laura's mentioned you. Great to finally meet you in person. What brings you to soccer practice? Didn't know you had kids on the team. Oh, I don't, he said smoothly. Just meeting a client for coffee. He gestured toward the Starbucks across the street. Saw the game and thought I'd watch for a minute. Your daughter's quite the player. He knew which kid was mine. In a field of 22 girls in identical uniforms, he'd picked out Janie. That wasn't casual observation. That was inside information. Laura talks about the girls a lot at work, he continued, as if reading my thoughts. She's very proud of them. Laura barely mentioned the girls' activities to me anymore, but apparently she was sharing every detail with Scott Williams. Another piece of the puzzle clicked into place. Well, nice seeing you, I said, my voice steady despite the rage building in my chest. I'm sure Laura will be excited to hear I ran into you. Actually, Scott said quickly, let's keep it between us. You know how it is, mixing business with personal stuff. Might seem unprofessional. There it was, the request for secrecy. The first rule of cheating, keep your worlds separate. Sure thing, I lied. Our little secret. I watched him walk away, noting the confident swagger, the expensive clothes, the way he climbed into that black Range Rover like he owned the world. This was the man my wife was betraying me with. This was the reason for the late nights and cold shoulders and mysterious earrings. That night, after the girls were asleep, I sat in my home office and stared at the camera feeds on my laptop. Empty bedroom, empty house, empty marriage. Laura had texted around 8 to say she'd be working until at least midnight, again. My phone rang. Jamie Chen. I've got something for you already, she said without preamble. Your wife left her office at 6:30 tonight. She didn't go home. Where did she go? The Driskill Hotel, downtown. She's there now, room 1247. She's not alone. I closed my eyes and felt something die inside my chest. Scott Williams? Tall guy, black Range Rover, thinks he's hot crap. Yeah, that's him. They've been there for 3 hours. 3 hours. While I was helping Janie with her homework and making sure Beth finished her science project, my wife was in a hotel room with another man. While I was being a father and a husband and a decent human being, Laura was destroying everything we'd built together. Matt, you still there? Yeah, I said, my voice hoarse. I'm here. I'm sorry. I know this isn't what you wanted to hear. But it was exactly what I'd expected to hear. The earring had already told me the truth. Jamie had just confirmed it. Keep following them, I said. I want everything documented. Every meeting, every hotel, every lie she tells. I want it all. You got it. And Matt, I'm sorry about your family. This part always sucks. After she hung up, I sat in the dark and thought about revenge. Not the hot, stupid kind that lands you in jail. The cold, calculated kind that leaves your enemies destroyed and you standing victorious in the wreckage of their lives. Laura wanted to play games. Fine, but she was about to learn that I was much better at this than she thought. The house always wins, especially when I'm the one dealing the cards. The next week was the longest of my life. Jamie sent me updates twice a day. Photos, timestamps, detailed reports of Laura's activities. My wife was living a double life, and she was getting sloppy about it. Tuesday, Laura left work at 5:45 p.m., met Scott at Cafe Blue downtown. They held hands across the table. She laughed at something he said, a real laugh, the kind she used to give me. Wednesday. Hotel again, different location this time, the Four Seasons. Scott was upgrading their affair, apparently. They stayed until almost midnight. Thursday, shopping trip to Nordstrom. Scott bought Laura a necklace that probably cost more than I made in a month. She kissed him in the parking lot like teenagers. Friday, the kicker. Laura told me she was flying to Dallas for a weekend conference. She was actually going to Scott's apartment, a penthouse downtown that I could never afford in 3 lifetimes. I spent that weekend with my daughters, taking them to movies and mini golf and ice cream, all while knowing their mother was in another man's bed. Beth kept asking why I seemed sad. Janie wanted to know when Mommy was coming home. Soon, baby girl, I told her. Mommy will be home soon. But the woman who came back Sunday night wasn't the mother my daughters deserved. She was a stranger wearing Laura's face, distracted and guilty and already planning her next lie. How was Dallas? I asked over breakfast Monday morning. Fine, she said, not looking up from her phone. Boring conference stuff. Learn anything interesting? Not really. Same old presentations about cellular research. I nodded and sipped my coffee, watching her text someone. Probably Scott, probably arranging their next rendezvous. The woman couldn't even be bothered to lie creatively anymore. That afternoon, I got a call from Chloe Patterson, Laura's best friend since college. Or former best friend, as it turned out. Matt, we need to talk, she said without preamble. About what? About Laura, about what she's been doing. Can you meet me for coffee? An hour later, I sat across from Chloe at a corner table in a downtown cafe, watching her fidget with her wedding ring. She looked uncomfortable, guilty, like she was about to betray a confidence. I should have called you weeks ago, she began, but I kept hoping she'd come to her senses. Tell me, she's having an affair with some consultant guy named Scott. She's been bragging about it, Matt. Bragging about the hotels and the gifts and how exciting it all is. Chloe's voice was thick with disgust. She said you were boring, that you'd let yourself go, that she deserved better. Each word hit like a physical blow. It was one thing to know your wife was cheating. It was another to learn she was mocking you to her friends while she did it. How long have you known? 2 months. She swore me to secrecy, said she just needed to figure things out. But Matt, she's not trying to figure anything out. She's planning to leave you. She's already talked to a lawyer. My blood turned to ice. What kind of lawyer? Divorce attorney. She wants half of everything, plus alimony and child support. She thinks you'll roll over and give her whatever she wants because you're too nice to fight. Laura had always mistaken kindness for weakness. It was about to become a very expensive error in judgment. There's more, Chloe continued. She's been moving money around. Small amounts from your joint accounts into a personal account you don't have access to. She's been doing it for months. How do you know all this? Because she told me. She thought it was clever, thought she was so much smarter than everyone else. She said Scott was helping her plan everything, that he had connections who could make sure she got everything she wanted in the divorce. I thanked Chloe and drove home in a daze. Laura wasn't just cheating on me. She was actively plotting to destroy me, She wanted my house, my money, my children, and my dignity. She wanted to leave me with nothing while she rode off into the sunset with her rich boyfriend. That night, I waited until Laura went to sleep, then crept into my office and started making calls. First to my bank, to check our account balances. Chloe was right. Small withdrawals over the past 4 months, never enough to trigger alerts, but totaling almost $15,000. Next, I called my lawyer. David Kim had handled the purchase of our house and some business contracts for me. Not a divorce specialist, but he'd know who to recommend. "Matt, it's 11 o'clock at night," David said when he answered. "This better be important. My wife is planning to divorce me and take everything I own. How important is that? Important enough. Can you be in my office at 8 tomorrow morning?" "I'll be there." The meeting with David was enlightening and terrifying in equal measure. Texas was a community property state, which meant Laura was entitled to half of everything we'd acquired during the marriage. But if I could prove adultery, I might be able to protect myself. "The key is documentation," David explained. "Photos, videos, financial records, witness statements. The more evidence you have, the better your position." I already had photos and videos, thanks to Jamie, but I needed more. I needed Laura to hang herself with her own rope. That evening, I installed additional cameras throughout the house. Not just the bedroom now, the living room, kitchen, home office. If Laura was going to bring Scott into my house, into my children's home, I wanted every second recorded. I didn't have to wait long. Thursday night, Laura announced she was going out with the girls from work for drinks. She'd be home late, don't wait up, the usual lies. But instead of leaving, she went upstairs to shower and change into her most striking dress, the red one I'd bought her for our anniversary last year. An hour after she left, my phone buzzed with a motion alert from the kitchen camera. Someone was in my house. I pulled up the feed and felt my heart stop. Laura and Scott making out against my kitchen counter like eager teenagers. She was wearing the dress I'd bought her, and he was pawing at her like she was his property. They moved to the living room where Scott poured himself a glass of my best scotch, the bottle I'd been saving for a special occasion. He toasted Laura, said something that made her laugh, then pulled her onto the couch, my couch, in my house, with my children sleeping upstairs. I watched them for 20 minutes, documenting every kiss, every caress, every moment of their betrayal. When they finally went upstairs to my bedroom, I turned off the laptop. I'd seen enough for one night, but the cameras kept recording. And tomorrow, I'd have everything I needed to destroy them both. Laura came home at 2 a.m., slipping into bed like nothing had happened. She smelled like intimacy and expensive cologne, and when I pretended to wake up and reach for her, she pushed me away. "I'm tired, Matt. Long day at work." "Of course," I said. "Sweet dreams, honey." But I was the one who'd be having sweet dreams, because I finally had everything I needed to make Laura and Scott pay for what they'd done to my family. The war was about to begin. Friday morning, I made my first move. "Laura," I said over breakfast, keeping my voice casual, "I've been thinking about our finances. Maybe we should consolidate some accounts, make things simpler." She looked up from her phone, immediately suspicious. "What do you mean?" "Well, we've got money scattered across different banks, different accounts. Might be more efficient to streamline everything." I sipped my coffee like I was discussing the weather. "I could handle all the paperwork if you want." "That's not necessary," she said quickly. "Our current system works fine." "Does it?" "I noticed some unusual withdrawals from our joint savings. Small amounts, but they add up." Laura's face went pale. "I don't know what you're talking about." $15,000 over 4 months, Laura. Where did it go?" "Personal expenses. Things for the house, the girls. I don't have to justify every purchase to you." But her voice was shaky, and she couldn't meet my eyes. Guilty as charged. "Of course not," I said smoothly. "I was just curious. Maybe we could go over the statements together this weekend, make sure everything's in order." "I'm busy this weekend. Work stuff." "Right, work stuff." After she left, I called the bank and put a freeze on all joint accounts pending a security review. Laura would discover that little surprise the next time she tried to move money around. Then I called Rick Martinez. "Hey, man," I said when he answered. "You busy tonight? I could use some advice, friend to friend. Everything okay?" "Not really. Can we talk somewhere private, away from the neighborhood?" We met at a sports bar downtown, far from Meadowbrook and prying eyes. Rick ordered a beer. I stuck with coffee. I needed a clear head for what came next. "Laura's having an affair," I said without preamble. Rick's beer stopped halfway to his mouth. Jesus, Matt, are you sure? I pulled out my phone and showed him one of Jamie's photos, Laura and Scott holding hands at dinner, looking at each other like lovesick teenagers. Son of a witch, Rick muttered. How long? At least 3 months, maybe longer. I put the phone away. She's planning to divorce me and take everything. Already talked to a lawyer, already started moving money around. What do you need from me? Advice. You've seen this before, right? Messy divorces and custody battles, people trying to screw each other over. Rick nodded grimly. More times than I can count. What's your plan? Document everything, protect my assets, make sure I keep my daughters. But Rick, I want more than that. I want her to pay for what she's done. Not just financially, I want her reputation destroyed. I want her friends to know what kind of person she really is. Careful, Matt. Revenge has a way of backfiring. You could end up hurting yourself more than her. She brought another man into my house, Rick. Into my daughter's home. She's been lying to them and to me, to everyone. She deserves whatever she gets. Rick studied my face for a long moment. Okay, but we do this smart, legal, and clean. No stupid moves that could blow up in court later. Agreed. First thing, change all your passwords, secure your personal accounts, document everything she's taken. Second, get a forensic accountant to trace where that money went. Third, prepare for war because she's not going to go down easy. We shook hands and I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Hope. I wasn't alone in this fight. I had allies, I had evidence, and I had a plan. Saturday morning brought the first real confrontation. Laura tried to access our joint checking account online and discovered the freeze. She stormed into my office, phone in hand, face flushed with anger. What did you do to our accounts? I looked up from my laptop, the picture of innocence. Security freeze. The bank recommended it after some suspicious activity. What suspicious activity? Unauthorized withdrawals. Small amounts over several months. They're investigating possible identity theft. Laura's mouth opened and closed like a fish. She knew exactly what withdrawals I was talking about, and she knew I knew. You can't freeze our joint accounts without telling me. Actually, I can. I'm a joint account holder, which gives me the same rights you have. The bank explained the whole process when I called them yesterday. This is ridiculous. I need access to our money. For what? Work expenses? Personal items? Or maybe hotel rooms and expensive jewelry for your boyfriend? The words hung in the air like a bomb waiting to explode. Laura's face went through several expressions: shock, fear, anger, and finally cold calculation. I don't know what you're talking about. Scott Williams, biotech consultant, black Range Rover, ring any bells? Laura straightened her shoulders, and I saw the exact moment she decided to go on the offensive instead of playing defense. Fine, yes, I've been seeing Scott, and yes, I'm leaving you. I should have done it years ago. There it was. No more lies, no more pretense. The gloves were officially off. What about the girls? They'll be better off with me. Scott can provide for them in ways you never could. I laughed, and the sound was ugly even to my own ears. Scott doesn't want your kids, Laura. He wants you, and he wants the thrill of screwing another man's wife. But he doesn't want to be a stepfather to two girls who aren't his. You don't know him. I know his type. Rich, entitled, used to getting what he wants. But kids are a responsibility, not a toy. When the novelty wears off, he'll move on to the next married woman who makes him feel important. Laura's confidence wavered for just a moment, but she recovered quickly. We'll see about that. I've already talked to a lawyer, Matt. I know my rights. I'll get half of everything, plus support for the girls. Will you? Even after committing adultery? Even after stealing money from joint accounts? Even after bringing your boyfriend into our children's home? Her face went white. You can't prove any of that. I pulled out my phone and played a video clip. Laura and Scott in our kitchen, her dress hiked up, his hands all over her body. Can't I? Laura lunged for the phone, but I pulled it back out of reach. That's illegal! You can't record people without their consent. In my own house? Actually, I can. Texas is a one-party consent state, and since I live here, I can record anything that happens on my property. Laura stared at me like she was seeing a stranger. Maybe she was. The nice, accommodating husband she'd taken for granted was gone. In his place was someone who'd learned to fight back. You bastard, she whispered. No, Laura, I'm the man you married, the father of your children, and the guy you decided to betray and humiliate. but I'm also the man who's going to make sure you pay for every lie, every betrayal, and every dollar you stole." She turned and walked out of the room, but I heard her on the phone in the hallway, voice urgent and panicked. Calling Scott, probably. Warning him that their perfect little affair had just become very complicated. Good. Let them panic. Let them scramble and point fingers and turn on each other. Because the real fun was just getting started. That afternoon, I got a call from Jamie Chen. "Your wife and her boyfriend just had a very interesting conversation," she reported. "I couldn't hear everything, but it looked like a fight. She was crying, he was gesturing a lot, and she left his apartment looking pretty upset. Trouble in paradise? Seems like it. Want me to keep following them?" "Absolutely. And Jamie, I think it's time to expand the investigation. I want to know everything about Scott Williams. His finances, his business, his personal life. If he's got skeletons in his closet, I want to find them. That'll cost extra. Worth every penny." Because I was done playing defense. Laura and Scott had declared war on my family, and now they were going to learn what happened when you underestimated Matt Fairchild. The house always wins, and I was just getting started. Monday morning brought unexpected allies. Sarah Martinez knocked on my door while I was getting the girls ready for school, holding a casserole dish and wearing the expression of someone who'd made a difficult decision. "We need to talk," she said simply. After the girls left for school, Sarah and I sat at my kitchen table, the same counter where Laura had been making out with Scott 4 days earlier. The irony wasn't lost on me. "The whole neighborhood knows," Sarah said without preamble, "about Laura and that consultant guy." I nearly choked on my coffee. "And how?" "Mrs. Henderson saw them together at that new restaurant on 6th Street. She told the Patels, they told the Johnsons, and you know how it goes. By Sunday, everyone was talking about it." Small town dynamics in a big city suburb. I'd forgotten how quickly gossip traveled in our little corner of Austin. "What are people saying?" Sarah looked uncomfortable. "That Laura's been running around on you for months. That she's been lying about working late. That she brought him to Janie's soccer practice." She paused. "Matt, I'm sorry. We should have said something sooner." "You knew?" "Suspected. The late nights, the new clothes, the way she's been treating you at neighborhood events. Sarah's intuition, Rick calls it." She reached across and squeezed my hand. "We're on your side, whatever you need." It was more support than I'd expected and exactly what I needed to hear. That evening, I decided to test the waters at the weekly HOA meeting. Usually, these gatherings were exercises in suburban tedium, discussions about landscaping requirements and parking regulations that put half the attendees to sleep. But tonight felt different. I walked into the community center and immediately noticed the whispers, the sideways glances, the way conversations stopped when I approached. Everyone knew about Laura's affair, and they were waiting to see how I'd handle it. "Matt," called out Jim Patterson, the HOA president and Chloe's husband. "Good to see you. How's everything at home?" The question was loaded with subtext. Jim knew exactly how things were at home. His wife had been the one to tell me about Laura's plans. "Complicated," I said simply, "but getting better every day." The meeting proceeded normally until we reached new business. That's when Mrs. Henderson, bless her gossipy heart, decided to address the elephant in the room. "I think we need to discuss appropriate behavior for residents," she announced, her voice carrying the authority of someone who'd appointed herself neighborhood moral guardian. Specifically, the kind of activities that reflect poorly on our community. Several people shifted uncomfortably. Laura wasn't here, and she'd been avoiding neighborhood events since our confrontation Saturday, but everyone knew who Mrs. Henderson was talking about. "What kind of activities?" asked Dave Chen, playing innocent. "Adultery," Mrs. Henderson said bluntly, "bringing strangers into the neighborhood for inappropriate purposes, setting a bad example for our children." The room went dead silent. You could have heard a pin drop on the industrial carpet. "Now, Eleanor," Jim Patterson said diplomatically, "I'm not sure this is the appropriate forum for—" "It absolutely is," interrupted Rick Martinez, standing up from the back row. "We all pay dues to maintain property values and community standards. When residents engage in behavior that damages our reputation, it affects everyone." I hadn't asked Rick to speak up, but I appreciated the support. Other heads were nodding around the room. Laura's affair wasn't just personal drama. It was community business. "What do you propose we do about it?" asked Sarah Martinez, playing her part perfectly. Mrs. Henderson smiled like a shark. I propose we make it clear that such behavior is unwelcome in Meadowbrook. Social consequences for antisocial actions. Translation. Laura was about to be frozen out of every neighborhood activity, every social gathering, every casual conversation. In a community where reputation was everything, she was about to become a pariah. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. After the meeting, several neighbors approached me with offers of support. The Hendersons invited me and the girls for dinner. The Patels offered to help with carpooling and childcare. The Johnsons, who barely spoke to anyone, actually shook my hand and told me they were pulling for me. Laura had wanted to keep her affair secret, to maintain her perfect suburban facade while she planned my destruction. Instead, she'd become the neighborhood scandal, the cautionary tale that other wives would whisper about at book club meetings. The next morning brought even better news. Jamie Chen called with an update on Scott Williams that made my day. "Your boy Scott's got problems," she reported. "Big ones." "What kind of problems?" "The financial kind. That fancy apartment? He's 3 months behind on rent, the Range Rover, leased, and he's behind on those payments too. His consulting business is basically broke." I sat down hard in my office chair. "But he's been spending money like crazy. Hotels, jewelry, expensive dinners, credit cards. He's maxed out 6 different cards and applied for 3 more in the past month. The guy's leveraged to his eyeballs, and it's all about to come crashing down." Scott Williams wasn't the successful businessman he pretended to be. He was a fraud, living on borrowed money and borrowed time. And Laura had hitched her wagon to a sinking ship. "There's more," Jamie continued. "He's got a history. 2 previous affairs with married women, both ended badly. One of the husbands filed assault charges. Apparently Scott got physical when the woman tried to break it off. Assault charges? Dropped eventually, but it's in the system. Your wife's boyfriend has a temper and a pattern of targeting married women. She's not his first victim, and she won't be his last." This was better than I'd hoped. Scott wasn't just a cheater. He was a predator with a criminal history and a mountain of debt. Laura had thrown away her marriage for a man who was about to lose everything. That evening, I decided it was time for a direct confrontation with Scott Williams. I found him at his gym, an upscale fitness club downtown, where the monthly membership probably cost more than most people's car payments. He was on the bench press, showing off for a couple of college girls who were pretending to be impressed. "Scott," I said, walking up to the bench, "we need to talk." He looked up, and I saw recognition flicker across his face, then fear, then anger. "I don't have anything to say to you," he said, sitting up and reaching for his towel. "That's funny, because I have plenty to say to you." I kept my voice conversational, but loud enough for the college girls to hear. "About my wife, about my house, about the money you've been spending that you don't have." Scott's face flushed red. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Sure you do. Laura Staples, research scientist, married mother of 2. Ring any bells? Or maybe I should mention the Driscoll Hotel, room 1247, 3 weeks ago." The college girls were staring now, along with several other gym members. Scott grabbed my arm and tried to pull me toward a corner, but I planted my feet and didn't budge. "Let's discuss this right here," I said cheerfully. "I'm sure everyone would love to hear about your hobby of seducing married women." "You're crazy," Scott hissed, but his grip on my arm loosened. "Am I? Because I've got photos, Scott. Videos. Financial records. I know about the debt, the overdue rent, and the credit cards. I know about your previous affairs and the assault charges. I know everything." Scott's face went white. Around us, the gym had gone quiet. Everyone was listening now, watching the drama unfold. "What do you want?" he whispered. I smiled, and it wasn't a nice expression. "I want you to understand something very clearly. You've been playing games with my family, my marriage, my life, but you picked the wrong man to mess with." I leaned closer, lowering my voice so only he could hear. "I'm going to destroy you, Scott. Professionally, financially, socially. By the time I'm done, you'll be lucky to get a job flipping burgers. And Laura, she's going to realize exactly what kind of man she threw her marriage away for." I stepped back and spoke loud enough for everyone to hear again. "Enjoy your workout. And Scott, you might want to start looking for a cheaper gym. You're going to need to cut expenses real soon." I walked away, leaving Scott standing there with his mouth open and 50 people staring at him like he was something they'd scraped off their shoes. The war was escalating, and I was winning every battle. But the best was yet to come. 3 days later, Laura made her biggest mistake yet. She tried to take my daughters. I came home from a service call Thursday afternoon to find Beth and Janie's rooms empty, their clothes and toys gone. A note on the kitchen counter, written in Laura's precise handwriting. Matt, the girls are staying with me at Scott's place until we can work out a more permanent arrangement. They need stability right now, and you're obviously not capable of providing it. My lawyer will be in touch. Laura, I called Rick Martinez immediately. She can't do that, Rick said after I read him the note. Not without a court order. Technically, this is kidnapping. What are my options? Call your lawyer, file an emergency motion for return of the children. But Matt, this could get ugly fast. Are you prepared for that? I thought about my daughters, probably confused and scared, staying in a stranger's apartment while their mother played house with her boyfriend. I thought about Scott Williams, a man with a history of violence, now responsible for my children's safety. I'm prepared for whatever it takes. David Kim, my lawyer, was equally outraged when I called him. She has no legal right to remove the children from the family home, he said. We can file for emergency custody tonight and have a hearing tomorrow morning. But I need you to document everything, the note, the missing belongings, any communication she's had with the girls. I was already ahead of him. The security cameras had recorded Laura packing the girls' things while they were at school, her movements quick and furtive like a thief. She'd planned this ambush carefully, waiting until I was out of the house to execute her kidnapping. But Laura had forgotten something important. I knew where Scott lived. Jamie Chen had provided his address weeks ago. A luxury high-rise downtown with doormen and security cameras. The kind of building that kept detailed records of who came and went. I drove downtown and parked across the street, calling the girls' cell phones. Beth answered on the second ring. Dad, where are you? I'm nearby, sweetheart. Are you okay? Is Janie okay? We're fine, but we want to come home. Mom says we have to stay here, but Scott's apartment is weird, and he doesn't have any food we like. Put me on speaker so Janie can hear, okay? Okay. Janie, it's Dad. Daddy! Janie's voice was small and scared. When can we come home? I don't like it here. My heart broke a little more. Soon, baby girl. I'm working on it right now. But I need you and Beth to be brave for me, okay? Take care of each other. We will, Beth said. Dad, Scott's been yelling at Mom. They had a big fight about money or something. Interesting. Trouble in paradise already. Just stay in your room and keep your phones with you. If anything happens, anything at all, you call me immediately. Promise? We promise. After hanging up, I called Jamie Chen. I need everything you can get me on Scott Williams' apartment building, I said. Security footage, visitor logs, anything that shows Laura and the girls going in and out. On it. But Matt, what are you planning? I'm planning to get my daughters back and destroy the people who took them. The emergency custody hearing was scheduled for Friday morning at 9 a.m. I spent Thursday night preparing with David, gathering evidence and planning our strategy. The security footage of Laura packing the girls' belongings, the note she'd left, financial records showing Scott's debts and instability, character references from neighbors and teachers. But I had one more card to play. Friday morning, I arrived at the courthouse to find Laura and her lawyer, an expensive-looking woman in a designer suit who probably charged more per hour than I made in a week. Laura looked tired and stressed, her perfect facade finally cracking under pressure. Scott wasn't with her. Interesting. Your Honor, Laura's lawyer began when we were called before the judge, my client removed the children from an increasingly hostile home environment. Mr. Fairchild has become unstable and vindictive since learning about the end of their marriage. Unstable how? Judge Martinez, no relation to Rick, asked. He's been stalking my client, harassing her boyfriend, freezing joint accounts out of spite. The children need protection from his erratic behavior. David stood up. Your Honor, Mrs. Staples removed the children without notice or consent, leaving only a note. She took them to the apartment of a man they barely know, a man with a history of violence and significant financial problems. He handed the judge a folder thick with evidence, Scott's criminal history, his debt records, photos of Laura's affair, the security footage of her packing the girls' belongings while they were at school. Furthermore, David continued, Mrs. Staples has been conducting an affair for months, bringing her paramour into the family home while the children were present. She's stolen money from joint accounts and lied repeatedly to her husband and children about her activities. Judge Martinez reviewed the evidence, his expression growing darker with each page. "Mrs. Staples," he said finally, "do you deny having an extramarital affair with Mr. Scott Williams?" Laura's lawyer whispered something in her ear, but Laura shook her head. "No, Your Honor, I don't deny it." "And do you deny bringing this man into the family home while your children were present?" "No, Your Honor." "And do you deny removing your children from their home without their father's knowledge or consent?" Laura's voice was barely a whisper. "No, Your Honor." Judge Martinez set down the folder and fixed Laura with a stare that could have melted steel. "Mrs. Staples, your behavior has been reckless, selfish, and harmful to your children. You've conducted an affair, stolen money, and kidnapped your own children to facilitate your relationship with a man who appears to be financially unstable and potentially dangerous." He turned to me. "Mr. Fairchild, I'm ordering the immediate return of your daughters to the family home. Mrs. Staples will have supervised visitation only until a full custody evaluation can be completed." Laura's face crumpled. Her lawyer looked like she wanted to disappear. I felt a surge of satisfaction that was probably visible from space. But Judge Martinez wasn't finished. "Furthermore, I'm ordering Mrs. Staples to return any money taken from joint accounts and to refrain from any contact with Mr. Williams while custody proceedings are ongoing. Any violation of these orders will result in immediate arrest." The gavel came down with a sound like thunder. I walked out of that courthouse, feeling like I'd won the lottery. Laura followed behind, her expensive lawyer already making excuses and talking about appeals. But the damage was done. She'd lost her children, her reputation, and her boyfriend, all in one morning. My phone rang as I reached my truck. It was Beth. "Dad, Mom's here and she's crying. She says we have to pack our stuff and come home." "That's right, sweetheart. I'll be there in 20 minutes to pick you up." "What about Scott?" I smiled grimly. "Don't worry about Scott. I don't think you'll be seeing much of him anymore." And I was right. By the time I reached Scott's building, he was already loading boxes into his Range Rover, running away like the coward he was, abandoning Laura now that their affair had consequences. I rolled on down my window as I pulled up beside him. "Leaving so soon?" I called out. Scott looked up, his face haggard and defeated. "Stay away from me, Fairchild." "Oh, I'm done with you. But I thought you should know. Your landlord called. Something about eviction proceedings. And your credit card companies are looking for you too." Scott's face went white. He threw the last box in his car and slammed the door, not bothering to respond. I watched him drive away, probably heading for another city and another married woman to victimize. But his reputation would follow him now, thanks to the public scene at the gym and the courthouse drama. Scott Williams was finished in Austin. 20 minutes later, I was hugging my daughters in the lobby of Scott's building while Laura stood to the side, mascara streaking down her cheeks. "I'm sorry," she whispered as we waited for the elevator. "I'm so sorry, Matt." "No," I said firmly. "You're not sorry. You're caught. There's a difference." The elevator arrived and we rode up in silence. Beth and Janie clung to me like I might disappear, while Laura stared at her reflection in the polished steel doors. In Scott's apartment, the girls quickly packed their belongings while I supervised. The place was already half empty. Scott had been planning his escape for days, probably since the gym confrontation. "Where's Scott?" Laura asked, looking around at the missing furniture and packed boxes. "Gone," I said simply. "Turns out he's not the kind of man who sticks around when things get difficult. Who could have predicted that?" Laura sank into the one remaining chair and put her head in her hands. "What happens now?" Now you move out of my house, find your own place, and figure out how to rebuild your life. The girls will visit you when the court says they can, under supervision until you prove you can be trusted." "And us?" I looked at her. This woman I'd loved for 14 years, the mother of my children, the person who'd betrayed everything we'd built together. "There is no us, Laura. You made sure of that when you brought Scott Williams into our bed." She started crying again, but I felt nothing. No sympathy, no regret, no lingering love. Just cold satisfaction and the knowledge that justice had been served. That evening, I sat on my couch with Beth and Janie, watching a movie and eating pizza. Normal family activities in our normal family home. Laura was gone, Scott was gone, and we were finally at peace. "Dad," Janie said during a commercial break, "are you and Mom getting divorced?" "Yes, baby girl, but that doesn't change how much I love you and Beth. You'll always be the most important thing in my life." "Good," Beth said matter-of-factly, "because Mom's boyfriend was creepy and his apartment smelled weird." I laughed, the first genuine laugh I'd had in months. My daughters were resilient, adaptable, and smart enough to see through Scott Williams' facade. They'd be fine. 3 months later, the divorce was final. Laura got a small settlement and limited custody. She'd found a job at a research facility in Houston and moved away, starting over in a city where nobody knew about her affair or her spectacular fall from grace. Scott Williams had disappeared entirely. Jamie Chen's last report placed him in Phoenix, working at a car dealership and living in a studio apartment. His Range Rover had been repossessed, his credit destroyed, his consulting business a memory. I kept the house, got primary custody of my daughters, and rebuilt my life on my terms. The neighborhood rallied around us, treating me like a hero who'd stood up to betrayal and won. Property values stayed strong, community standards were maintained, and everyone learned a valuable lesson about the consequences of adultery. 6 months after the divorce, I was installing a smart security system for a new client when my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "You destroyed my life. I hope you're happy." I recognized Laura's writing style, even in a text message. I thought about responding, about explaining that she'd destroyed her own life through her choices. But there was nothing left to say. I deleted the message and went back to work. That evening, I sat on my back porch with a beer, watching Beth and Janie play in the yard. The house was quiet, peaceful, mine. The girls were happy, healthy, and thriving. My business was growing, my reputation was solid, and my future looked bright. Laura had gambled everything on Scott Williams and lost. She'd betrayed her family, stolen money, and kidnapped her own children, all for a man who abandoned her the moment things got difficult. She'd learned the hard way that the house always wins, especially when I'm the one dealing the cards.